All right, y'all. Hello, and welcome. It is Tuesday, August 5th, and we are here for tonight's training session on forensics. So before I hand things over to our coaches for tonight's session, we are officially past the halfway point of the US Cyber Combine 2025. And with that, I have a couple of reminders and announcements and things of that nature to share with you. First of all, I know many of you are probably tired of hearing this, but those of you that are dialed in should make sure that you are dialed in with an alias that looks like your first and last name. It is much harder for me to go in and give you credit for your attendance if it is not showing your first and last name. There is somebody dialed in with a phone number. So if your name is also not listed, please DM me or put a note in the. Okay, Arnav. Okay. Arnav, if that's you, shoot me a message in Discord or something so I can make sure you get credit for being here tonight. Yes, some of you also still have not completed the LMS onboarding assignments, which it makes me a sad boy that I have to do a lot of manual labor to make sure that you are still getting credit. So please, if you have not done so already, certainly jump into Canvas and make sure that that LMS onboarding assignment is complete. If you have not gotten points for that assignment, you have not done it accurately. So you need to read the instructions and make sure that you are following them to update your Canvas profile. A couple of other announcements. This week, we will not be hosting Cyber Battles. As a reminder, we've talked about this. This is Black Hat and DEF CON week. So I know there are lots of competing activities and things of that nature. And, you know, we are entirely supportive of all of you that are out in the desert for these kinds of events, meeting people, gaining experience, all kinds of things, and encourage you to certainly take advantage of that opportunity to be out there. So no Cyber Battles this week, but we will be resuming next week. I posted the dates in Discord already. For the final two Cyber Battles options. It will be not this Saturday, but next Saturday. That is August 16th. I'm still working out the time, but it'll likely be pretty midday. And then the following week, Wednesday, August 20th, we will be hosting the fourth and final Cyber Battles option. Again, these are entirely optional. However, if you do want to participate in either of the two final Cyber Battles, you will need to be on a team. There will not be an individual option for the last two, and it's teams of three. So you're welcome to keep the teams that you've been participating on. You're also welcome to create new teams. I'll have a survey that goes out in Canvas just to make sure that we have everyone accounted for that is planning on participating, and we get everything set up accordingly for your experience in the last two Cyber Battles. All right, my last announcement, I did share in Discord today, if you haven't seen already, that the athlete interview assignment has been updated with a link to schedule your interview. The athlete interview is a mandatory component of the Combine and eligibility for either the US Cyber Team or the US Women's Cyber Team. So you are encouraged to go check that out. These will be scheduled first come, first serve. The athlete interview window will start on August 13th. That is a Wednesday. In fact, a week from tomorrow is the first option for interviews. And interviews will run through the 29th, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. until 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. That is the window, Monday through Friday from August 13th through 29th. Once those times have been taken, they will not be available. And I will add one more comment. Please be diligent when you are scheduling these interviews. It is incredibly difficult to scramble to reschedule your interview, especially if it's last minute. We work very hard to have 2 or 3 coaches and mentors attending your interviews. And so no calls, no shows, rescheduled last minutes are very difficult. They're very frustrating. Lily, I think you need to take another look at the calendar. The last minute reschedules, the last minute cancellations, those kinds of things are very, very difficult and make our lives unpleasant. So if you schedule an interview, please do your best to commit to that time. I know emergencies and things happen. Please be diligent in scheduling that. And if you do have to cancel or reschedule it, 24 hours notice is much appreciated, so we can do our best to get that back squared away. All right. Does anybody have any questions on any of the announcements or the reminders that I shared with you to kick off tonight? No. Okay, none heard. Per usual, tonight should be interactive. Use the emojis, use the chat box. We have two wonderful gentlemen leading tonight's session, Coach Josh Brunty and Coach David Morgan. We are here for forensics. There will be a poll that I launch at some point randomly before they are done with tonight's session. And in order to receive full credit for being here tonight, you do have to respond to the poll. I will make sure to drop a note in the chat when it's live, and it will remain open for 10 minutes once it goes out there. So with that, Josh, David, over to you, gentlemen, whenever you're ready.
Yep, I'm taking it. Hello, everyone. This is Coach Morgan. You can call me David. You can call me Coach Morgan. You can call me Coach David. I really don't care. But welcome to Forensics Week. And we're going to talk a little bit about Windows artifact forensics today. But real quick, I want to see, I see some chatter already in the chat here about no Vol 2 today. No, we're not going to be doing memory stuff today. Yeah, Vol 3 might be better. We'll have a arm wrestling contest about Vol 2, Vol 3. I actually have some one of the artifacts that we're going to talk about today. There's a really cool plugin in Vol 2. I don't know that it's been ported over to Vol 3 yet, but there's some cool things we can find. We're going to look at Windows artifacts specifically today. It's a very delicate skill set that a lot of forensics practitioners, even very seasoned forensics practitioners, forget about all the time, because it's not the fun stuff like memory and even hard drive and everything else. So yeah, I know, Lily, as far autopsy and FTK imager are great, but you're not going to need those for the forensics that we're looking at today, at least not to do the forensics. You might need to take a disk image to find some of these files, but we'll get there when we get there. So I want to hear real quick from all of you in chat on maybe just like a 1 through a 5, with 5 being you are a forensics ninja, and 0 or a 1 that you are pretty new to forensics. Give me a number of what you think you are. I'm just kind of curious on what we have in our combine this year. Wow, a lot of 3s and 4s. George is a 9, so George either doesn't want to follow instructions or is such a super ninja. Maybe it's like a 5 and a 4. All right, see some 3s in there. All right, so it looks like we're feeling pretty good on forensics. All right, now one more little question. What about Windows artifacts? And I'm not talking about memory. I'm not talking about hard drive artifacts. I'm talking about the very deep artifacts like shell bags and jump lists and a bunch of the built-in features in Windows that will allow a forensicator to figure out what was actually done on that system in a time-bound sequence. Oh, now I'm seeing negative numbers. All right, so I think things looks a little bit lower. That's exactly why I wanted to talk about Windows artifacts today, because everyone always goes directly to memory, or we're looking at hard drive space, or something like that. And there's a lot of really, really interesting and important artifacts that we can get in other places in Windows. You'll bump it up to a 2 if you can use your SANS posters. Well, I actually have, before I forget, thank you for reminding me, I have a file that will go along with today's lecture. And let me put that into the chat. I have to find it. I just had it. Here it is. Can I add a... No, I can't. Brad, how can I...
Discord, David. Discord might be the easiest way to throw that in there.
Yeah, do you know what? You're right.
If you send it to me, I can put it in Discord too, either way.
Okay, Discord. You know what, Brad? So I'm not fumbling around and wasting everyone's time. I am just going to send it to you.
Perfect.
Should have asked you about that prior. Sorry.
No, it's all good. Yeah, throw it to me in our chat, and I'll put it in the announcements channel.
There we go. Please send Discord. There we go. I had to actually send you text to send it. There we go. Okay, so Brad's going to add that somewhere, send it out to you all. It is a SANS derived. It's from the GCFA track for the Certified Forensic Analyst track, and it's a really good kind of cheat sheet in a docx of just a ton of different ways to pull Windows artifacts out of a system. Now, a lot of the ones that we're going to talk about today are not available to you in a live system, and it makes the forensics a little bit more difficult because you can only really pull it from Deadbox, except for some of the things that I'm going to show you on how you can pull things from memory that otherwise wouldn't be accessible. Yeah, I know docx, but I didn't make it, Elon, so you know, take the free document where you get it. Do you know what, Elon? You can make it into a PDF if that makes you happy. Right. So let me catch up with the. All right, just looking at some of the chatter in there. All right, so let's jump right into the Windows artifacts. Now, I do have some hands-on for you. I am going to post this for you. I have this up front just to warn you about it. There is an 11 gigabyte file that is at this Google address. I will post this towards the end, and it has 2 EO1 files in it. So if you've done Windows forensics before, most Windows forensics or most forensic files come in either a RAW format, a DD format, or an EO1 format. These are in EO1 formats.
So are you supposed to be screen sharing right now? Because we don't see anything.
That would pretty help, wouldn't it?
Yeah, just wanted to check.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I have been teaching all day and my brain's kind of fried. So give me 1 second here. How about now?
Yes, we can see it now.
There we go. It's like I'm teaching for the first time. All right, so Windows Forensics it is. You will see this link right here, this Google Drive link right here. I will post it up towards the end. These are going to be some supplemental challenges that I'll throw into the CTF in the next day. Coach Brunty does have your official forensics CTF challenge that he will talk about a little bit later, but I'm going to give you a couple of extra ones that have to do specifically with the Windows artifacts, and I'll try to get them put up in the next day or so. So these aren't the official ones, they're kind of extra, but there'll be a couple of them that go right along with the Windows artifacts that we will be looking at today. Again, those are 2 EO1 files, and you should be used to that. Let's take a look at the different types of Windows artifacts. There are 7 or so up for argument on what's considered a Windows artifact and what's not, but there's about 7 that you really should be aware of. These are, quite honestly, not often asked about in CTF questions. CTF challenges often go straight to the memory forensics and packet capture forensics. We're going to take a look at those types of things later in the year. But again, this is as you could see from all of your numbers that you were giving, that all of you rated yourselves pretty high on traditional Windows forensics, or forensics in general, I guess. But when it came to Windows artifacts, again, I chose this topic. I taught it a year or two ago. I think season 3 I gave this, but it's because these are often neglected by forensicators, and they do have a wealth of information, and they are pretty easy, quite honestly, to go get the forensics out of, but you just need to know they exist and how to do it. And if we were caught in a CTF challenge with this and we hadn't seen it before, it would probably be a sticky situation. So that's why we're going it over today. Anyway, the first one that we're going to look at is called Amcache. Amcache is also called Application Activity Cache. And as you will see as I walk through these next 6 or 7 artifact types, most of these are based on making Windows faster. A lot of these are to kind of take a page from how Google Chrome from the very beginning would kind of preload things. So if you've never really looked at the forensics of how the web browsers work these days, they take a look at what page you are on and they go preload, they pre-download and pre-fetch all of the data and all of the web pages from the links on the page. So if you're on a page and there's 10 different links on it that could take you to the next page or a different page, Google Chrome for years now has automatically gone out and pulled that information so that the second that you click on that link, that the page is already ready for it. It already has downloaded it, it's retrieved it, it's holding it in memory, and it's ready. And Windows started doing a lot of this in Windows 7 and Windows 10, the same kind of activity. And do they actually make it faster, or is it just slow and vulnerable? Yeah, they actually do make it faster. I wouldn't say that it makes it any more vulnerable unless you're talking about the vulnerability of some forensicator figuring out everything you've ever done on this system. Windows and fast don't work right. Yeah, well, that's just because Windows is kind of bloated, but it would be even slower without some of these forensic, without some of these Windows methods to speed up how it does things. Yeah, we're going to talk about Eric Zimmerman's tools. Eric Zimmerman's tool set is particularly good at all of these Windows forensics that we're going to talk about today with these, specifically these Windows artifacts. Yes, you will see all the search histories on this, and some of these artifacts we'll talk about in a little bit. You would think that they're just for, say, a particular file type or a particular way to speed up something like a link or an icon on your desktop. But if you go into the registry and if you go into some of the other databasing that these things do, it actually stores websites that you go to frequently. And I'll show you how all that works as we go along here. So Amcache is Application Activity Cache. It is a Hive. It's a Hive-based Windows log file. So a lot of other things that are Hive-based, just like the registry, Windows holds this in a Hive log file, but we can provide, or we can grab the timeline of program execution from this. So we use this a lot in law enforcement forensics, where we want to prove that someone opened a file at a certain time. Again, do we really see that Amcache is going to be a CTF question in the future? Probably not, but I could foresee it being a link to an answer that would give us a clue to where to find the actual answer in a CTF question. If we were to look at timelining user activity inside of Windows, Amcache is one of those things where we can build an accurate and intricate timeline of pretty much everything that a user has done on a system. So it makes it pretty important from a forensic standpoint. We can also log in here. We can see in the logs the anti-forensic programs, portable executable usage. So a lot of Windows artifacts will only keep installed programs and not portable executables. So even portable executable usage is logged in Amcache. This also will include external storage attachment, which a lot of other forensics does not do. You might see in a Hive that a USB drive was added, but you're not going to see any portable executables launched from that drive, for instance, but Amcache will show that to you. So this shows the execution path, the first run date and time, and the last run date and time. and then the first install date and time if it is installed file. This is a very interesting part of Amcache where you miss a lot of the middle timestamps, but you get the first and the last. Interestingly, this is one of those things that cannot be pulled from a live machine. This is only available in dead box forensics, meaning the computer has to be turned off and then we image the drive. And that's because Amcache is locked by the operating system so that it cannot be read or written to while the computer's on. It is not amended until shut down. And we're going to see a couple of these Windows artifacts that aren't touched by Windows. Everything is kept in memory until shutdown. This particular file is completely locked by the operating system. We get a SHA-1 in the log. I know SHA-1 has been kind of thrown away. We don't really use it anymore. But the deeper into forensics you get, the more you will see that SHA-1 and MD5, even though we don't use them in other parts of cybersecurity at all, we're still going to see them in forensics. And SHA-1 is still the hash that is used as part of the Amcache log. So Amcache, the amcache.hive file that is Windows 8 and newer, I don't know that we're going to see in any CTFs any Windows 7 and earlier anymore. I mean, the further we get away from that, the better, quite honestly. But if you were part of a CTF that had Windows 7 or earlier, it is a different name. So you just have to go look for that recent file cache.bcf. It's held in, do I have a marker on here? Am I able to draw in Google? I don't think I am. System root, app compact programs, Amcache. That is where we will find that HAV file. So again, on Deadbox Forensics, it's just something that we can grab. And then we use either RegRipper with the Amcache plugin. RegRipper will not open this, even though this is a Hive, it will not open it without the Amcache plugin, or we can go get Eric Zimmerman's toolset with Amcache Parser. You see plenty of Windows 7 at CCDC? No, all right. Well, there you go. Now you have both files, and if you have Windows 7 or earlier, you know that the other BCF file is the one that you need to go grab. All right, so looking at a parsing utility here, something like RegRipper will look at it, the Hive like this. You can see that it's not very intuitively named. You kind of had the GUIDs that are you have to kind of parse out and go through manually, and it's not until you go into the actual values where you're going to see the actual file name. And each of these data points is going to be a separate thing. Like you're going to get the file name and the full path of where it was executed from, and another one will have the timestamp, and another have a couple of other things. So it's very difficult with these Hive log files to go in and parse all of the information. Highly recommend you go get Eric Zimmerman's tool set, and it will break it out into a nice table for you. Yep, UTF-16, that's how you can tell that this is 2-byte Unicode, typical of Windows, because you have an ASCII character and then a dot, and an ASCII character and a dot. So 2-byte Unicode with Microsoft. Sorry, I'm trying to keep up with all the chatter here as well in the chat. Any questions on Amcache? We'll move right along. Let's talk about Shimcache. Amcache and Shimcache are often confused. They are two different things, but they're kind of similar. Remember, Amcache was for application history, like activity. Shimcache is for application compatibility. And so we're going to get duplicate records for the vast majority of process executions on Windows. One of them is going to be the activity log. The other is going to be the compatibility log. So app compact cache is Shimcache. It's another Hive-based Windows log, and it's designed to capture application compatibility issues. So we're talking about different versions of Windows and different programs or code that's written for those different versions. And shim cache is there to literally shim specific dependencies and code in to help something run on a different version of Windows that normally it wasn't designed to run. Sorry, Seth, just seeing your question. Why does Amcache parser have 3 different versions? Which Amcache parser are you talking about? There's a couple of them that are named Amcache parser that I know of, but it depends on where you got it from. Oh, Eric Zimmerman's. I bet those are for different versions of Windows, and it probably follows right in line with, like you said, the .NET version. I'm not exactly sure what you're looking at, but Garv, what is meant by shim? That is the Windows name for this particular type of cache, because quite literally, like a shim, if you use, I don't know, a shim in a doorway, like you're hanging a door frame in your house and you have to shim it so that it's plumb and level. It's kind of like a wooden wedge that you hammer in. You're just trying to push it a little bit so that it works right. And that's kind of what the shim cache is here. The shimming part of the application compatibility is Windows kind of sticking in a little tool to help a program run appropriately on possibly a Windows version that that program wasn't designed for. So it helps track applications to work correctly on whatever version of Windows that you're trying to run it on. So yeah, you're literally like shimming it. Yep. So again, Hive-based Windows log for compatibility issues, but it is going to contain a lot of the same log entries as the app cache. So you're going to get the full path, file size, last modified time, all of that. So this is another one of those things that you can build a timeline off of in most respects, not all, because the timeline difference in a shim cache is a little bit less than the app cache. As you can see here, it's the last modified time and the last shim cache update time, not necessarily the first and last time that it was used. Now, shim cache, because it's not needed per se as much as some of the other types of caching, this has a set size of cache, so older entries are overwritten by newer entries. If you have a computer that's been running for, I don't know, months and months and months, and then you take a forensic image of it, you're only going to get so much history from that. The size of that cache depends on the specific operating system version, but old entries are overwritten. This also contains entries for pretty much all binaries that are executed. So even things that are browsed in Windows Explorer, command line activity, all of that shows up in shim cache. That is not necessarily true for some of the other logging that we will see in other Windows artifacts. You can see here the Hive that it is. Let me see if I can draw on this. I know I have a pen. Yeah, there we go. You can see here the Hive.
Yeah, that works.
Yep, I just had to find the right button. I'm used to PowerPoint, not the Google thing here, but we'll get it working. All right, so here's the Hive. So you can see that in app cache, it was a file that was written by Windows at program or at shutdown. This is actually an updated registry Hive that you can go into on a live system. However, this, even in a live system, you're not going to get any of the entries since reboot, because this is another one of those that it does not write any of the log entries until the system is shut down. So on this one, on shim cache, you can retrieve it from a live system by using like a registry viewer, but it's not going to have anything since the last reboot, since that's when it actually writes everything from memory into that Hive. Here's what shim cache looks like. Now, this is where I was talking about that volatility, and this is version 2, has a shim cache add-on or a Shimcache extension that will allow us to pull things from memory. So remember, I just said that we couldn't pull it directly from the Hive while the machine was live, but we can, while the machine is live, pull it from memory. And very simple, easy to do with volatility. So if you were on a live machine and you needed to pull all of the Shimcache, you could pull all the historical stuff from the Hive and all of the current stuff since the last reboot from memory. Any questions with Shimcache? All right, moving right along to prefetch. Prefetch is the closest thing to the whole analogy I was given with the Google Chrome browser, where it kind of assumes that you're going to do something and it goes and gets it for you in case you do that thing. Prefetch is created the first time a program is executed from a new location, and the more often you use that program, the algorithm kicks in and it's going to retrieve more and more of that data, especially necessary metadata, so that when you click on that thing, it runs faster the next time. In Windows 10 and Windows 11, it is set to the last 8 execution times. So you do get 10 timestamps from the last 8 times plus the creation time of that program. So you get a total of 9 timestamps with prefetch. Prefetch is one of the #1 tools in law enforcement when we're trying to timeline criminal activity in the recent past. Now, prefetch is going to pull all sorts of data. The more often that you use it, a particular program, it's the prefetch algorithm is going to pull more and more, and it's going to store specific data files in the prefetch folder. There is a maximum in both Windows 10 and Windows 11 of 1,024 files. That's all that can be stored in that file. So if you're a heavy computer user, like probably most of us, and you're on Windows, that folder is probably very full, and old files are being rotated out as you are installing or using new applications. In Windows 10, it was introduced of the compression of prefetch. So even if you could go in and normally read what was, I don't know, some type of data file for whatever prefetch or whatever program you're trying to use, now it is compressed. So it's a little bit more difficult to just go into that prefetch folder. These have an extension of .pf. And so even if you tried to read it, Windows has its own compression algorithm for it. That was continued in Windows 11. So both 10 and 11, those prefetch files are compressed. You can't just examine them. You do need to parse them with a tool that knows how to decompress those. Now, prefetch is a really good tool to use in malware investigations, because prefetch is often used to prove that a program was executed, even after it was deleted from a system. So often you might see, I don't know, in cop shows or, you know, whatever, maybe you read case studies on the law enforcement side of things, but in law enforcement, when I worked law enforcement back in the day, we would use prefetch to show that the criminal, the bad guy, tried to get away with it by deleting the evidence, and they didn't know that there was backup copies in a couple of different places. One of those places is prefetch. So we can get quite a bit of that forensic data of something that's even deleted based on just what is kept in that prefetch folder in the PF format. This becomes a good source of information for execution of malware as well. So if we're trying to timeline an infection from a threat adversary, a lot of malware that self-deletes will not bother going and finding itself in prefetch and in other Windows artifacts. So malware investigations, this works really well here too. Now, one big caveat with this, prefetch must be enabled in the system settings, but by default in Windows, prefetch is already on. So the only way to get rid of prefetch then is to manually go in and turn it off. And of course, that would be a registry edit. And you can simply go to the system root. So it's usually c/windows/prefetch, and you can see all of your .pf prefetch files. Just like this. This is what it'll look like. Now, what's actually in these prefetch files? This is kind of fun because you can see quite a bit of information. The name of the executable that was run, those 8 timestamps plus the creation timestamp, how many times that program was run in total. So if I wanted to go, if I had access to your prefetch folder, I would be able to tell you the, I guess, priority or what programs that you all use the most. And trying to keep up with you all on the chatter in our Cyber Games Discord, I'm going to guess that Discord is probably a pretty high run count for most of you. Full file path in there and the list of dependencies. I try to keep up with all your chatter just to keep up with all of you and, you know, figure out what you're talking about and what you need. And you guys, I can't keep up with you all. But I love it. I love seeing all the chatter. It makes me happy that you guys are invested in this program, just like us coaches. All right, let's one other thing with prefetch. This is something that was kind of new to me as I was prepping for tonight. I've been doing forensics for decades, and there's always something pops up that either I forgot about or I never actually learned. This is one of those things that I forgot about. I'm pretty sure that I learned it at some point, but I had to go read up on this. There's actually an extension of prefetch in Windows called the Windows Superfetch. In newer versions of Windows, it is now called sysmain, but this is a background service in Windows since Vista, and it will preload frequently used programs in RAM. This answers so many questions I've had recently about using volatility and looking at what is running on a system where I've dumped memory and thinking about, well, I don't remember running that program or having that program run while I was taking that memory image. And then this reminded me that Superfetch will preload frequently used programs in RAM just in case you decide to start running them. So this is more effective with hard drives instead of SSDs because SSDs are already really fast, but it does work the same way on both of them. Windows actually has an algorithm that will analyze your usage patterns of all the executables that you run on your system, and it will proactively store some of that data in memory upon load so that it will start loading. When it thinks you're going to use a particular program, it may already be in RAM, or at least parts of it. So dynamic adjustments on what is fetched and loaded into RAM is those adjustments are made based on how much available RAM you have. But this is also intricately linked with the prefetch service. So the algorithm does use the prefetch algorithm to figure out what your most commonly used programs are to figure out what to throw into RAM. All right, let me check out the chat and see where we are with this. Chinese rootkit, yeah, good. Windows 10, okay. No questions. Excellent. Next, link files. These are pretty easy. You've all probably seen and used link files extensively. These are shortcut files. They're the ones that you see the little pointer in the corner of the icon. These aren't just icons that give you a link to some other program. When you create these and Windows creates them on their own without showing them to you more often than you probably realize, it does contain a number of artifacts that we can use in forensics. The file contains a bunch of metadata, like the access file name, of course, but also the size, the original path. So if someone moves a file, the link file will not update automatically. The original path will be part of that metadata. One of those very tricky forensics things that we use in law enforcement quite a lot. Timestamps, volume, machine info, more. Pretty helpful for investigating deleted files because, again, it's going to keep all of that metadata in the actual link file. Recently accessed programs. Now, it can contain much more optional data. And I was trying to read up on this a little bit more quite recently, and I couldn't find a really good answer to how Windows decides this optional part of what is considered necessary to load at this, whatever certain point. How does it determine what's optional and when to store it in these link files? One thing that I saw that did surprise me is that it stores things that really don't even matter for a particular link file. If I make a link file and I put it on my desktop, why do I need console window properties and environment variables? I might be able to think about, justifying it if that link file, when I open up that program, I have set it to a specific dimension and placement on my desktop that I always want it to open. And possibly with environment variables, things like the path or having it be able to execute certain things or retrieve certain things, maybe. But this just surprised me a little bit that link files can contain even that level of detail, and they certainly do. Like I said, link files, you can create these on your own by right-clicking on a file and making these, of course, but the system often makes these without you ever knowing, but it keeps them in a very specific place. So if you were to go to App Data Roaming, Microsoft Windows Recent, you're going to see about a lot of link files of programs that you have run, especially if you have run them recently. And those link files are going to contain all of this metadata, all of this artifacts about what you have been doing. Yeah, throw off the FBI by making a ton of objects that don't matter. George, I have a feeling that the FBI is not spying on you, but I could be wrong. All right, jump lists. This is a Windows taskbar feature giving quick access to recently used application files and actions. Jump lists are specifically for the Windows taskbar. This is something that when you install a new program, they might add it on its own, or you can add it to that taskbar. But when you do, it creates a jump list artifact. Now, it's not just a link, kind of like link files. It's not just a link. It's going to hold a bunch of metadata as well. And I'm sorry if you can hear the fighter jets going over right now. I'm right outside of a naval air station, and I guess they're running practice right now. So jump lists can include a lot of other metadata, including access documents, folders, even web addresses. This is the one I was talking about in my introduction, that there are certain types of artifacts that contain kind of a log, per se, a log of things you have done with that program. So if you have in your taskbar a browser that you use often, oh, sorry, someone's off mute. Did you have a question? Nope. Okay. Access documents, folders, and web addresses, like that's kind of data is going to be associated with these jump lists. So think about the types of artifacts that you could find in a jump list about all the things, all the files, all the folders, the documents, the web addresses that you've accessed with a particular icon just because it's in your taskbar. And this does include timestamps of that file access. Jump list can be a rather robust log and quite a bit of information that is useful in there for us. Pinned items will make it even more so. So you know that if you open a program, it adds it to that taskbar at the bottom. It's going to create a jump list for that. If you pin that icon to the taskbar, so it's always there, whether it's running or not, Windows will retain all of this data, even if you only open that program occasionally. So the more frequently it's accessed, the more data it has, of course, but it will retain it even if not frequent if you have pinned it.
This is the same for like if I pin a folder in quick access, or no, is that separate?
Are you talking about if you pin it down to the taskbar for quick access? That's exactly what we're talking about.
No, so if you do, if you go into like your search of your files, you can pin it to the side for quick access.
Oh,
Of,
do you know
like,
what?
when
That's
you
a really good
search.
question. That's a really good question. I do not know the answer to that. Josh, are you, do you happen to know that? Will that also create jump list logs? We'll find
Or
Josh
maybe
here.
that log would be somewhere else.
Yeah. Do you know what?
Did
a
you
really
ask
good
that
question.
again? Sorry, I missed that.
Yeah, Josh. So we're talking about jump lists right now and how frequently access programs that are pinned to the taskbar create more robust jump lists. And I'm sorry, who came off of mute? Was that Elon?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Elon was asking if you do the quick access where it shows up on the side, is that also considered a jump list? It's a good question. I don't know the answer to.
I don't know that one either, to be honest.
Yeah, I've never even thought about that. That's a great question. I will write that down and I'll try to research that a little bit for you if you don't beat me to it. But yeah, excellent question. Unfortunately, I just don't know.
No worries. Thanks.
Good school project for someone wanting to look into it. I've never seen anything posted on that before.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever run across an artifact blog on that either. I'm trying to rack my brain on it. Yeah, test it and find out. I'll start looking into it. Maybe it's something that we ask Perplexity or God help us, ChatGPT. All right, let's see, where were we here? Automatic destination created upon file. Yep, good. So you can see that this is again a file storage in app data roaming. Windows recent automatic destinations. This is what happened. This is where it goes if you do not pin it, but you are it's automatically adding itself through installation or through running it when it adds it to the taskbar, even temporarily. And then custom destination. So automatic destination is when Windows does it itself, when you are opening the file. Custom destination is considered when you pin it to the taskbar. So two different things. You know what, Elon? That would be an excellent write-up. Just got to get Brad to approve. And so you can see here that we have two different folders for it under app data. One is called automatic destinations, one called custom. So even in Deadbox Forensics, you're not going to have the GUI to see that someone has pinned something to the taskbar, but you can go to here and see the jump lists for everything that someone has pinned to their taskbar. Oh, Brad, Elon asked a really good question that Brad and I did not know the answer to, and suggested that maybe she can do a CTF write-up on it.
Okay, cool. Is that a question?
Well, I don't know what the parameters are of what they need to do for their write-ups. I know that they have to do write-ups at some point, but if it's something that can be done in lieu of.
Elon, send me a message. I'm sorry I missed the chatter.
And Elon, don't feel like
will
you
do.
have to do that now. Yeah, don't feel it. But
No,
if
but
it
I
is,
am interested in it.
perfect. Then that's what I was gonna say. If you are interested in it and that's what you want to do, just get that official approval. All right. Great question, though. All right, winding down here, getting kind of towards the end. Let's talk about shell bags. This is one that is a little bit more well-known by most forensicators. Some of the other ones get confusing and people forget about, but for whatever reason, maybe it's the funny name, but shell bags tend to be a little more popular. This is storage for user preferences for GUI folder display. So if you have a folder on your desktop and you have user preferences to say, put it in a specific location or make it a certain color, this is what a shell bag does. But because shell bag holds that information, it also holds a whole lot of other logging information about other things, including when you have accessed that folder. And that's via Explorer. So Explorer is a very specific executable in Windows, explorer.exe, not iExplorer. That's Internet Explorer. What we're talking about is just Explorer itself. Explorer.exe is the system executable in Windows that gives you your file structure and access and your GUI. So if you are accessing it pretty much in any way, when you have Windows loaded, you're using Explorer. So anytime that you access anything, you're getting a shell bag that holds the folder access and interacted with information. It can include entries for previously existing folders. So if you have, I don't know, bad guy evidence of you robbing the bank and it's on your desktop and then you delete that, there's still going to be a shell bag for that that holds all of the metadata about the usage of that folder. Now, the location of this one is a little bit different. This is in ntuser.dat. So you can find this in the Windows shell hive of that ntuser.dat. Yeah, Chris, in forensics, and when we look at, say, EDR, endpoint detection and response, process execution, process trees, nearly everything in Windows runs through explorer.exe. And Chris, you're probably the only one that has ever called iExplorer your beloved. So we can also see, you made I made Brad sad by saying that though, because Brad, I guess, is another fan of iExplorer. I was never a fan of iExplorer. I do like Edge, I'll tell you that. All right, so user class.dat also has duplicate entries for this. So even if ntuser.dat doesn't have what you need, you can also use it user class.dat. This is one of the few Windows artifacts where it has logs in both locations most of the time. All right, I think this is the last one we're looking at for tonight. And then, sorry. Oh, no.
I'm going to interrupt you real quick because I think Asa has a question.
Oh,
I don't know
sorry.
if it was on the back.
Yeah, I did want to ask about the shell bags. Does that actually store like the ICO file if you set a custom icon for a folder? Does it store any references to that?
Yes, it does. As far as I remember, yes, it does. Right? Or Josh, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you any customizations you have to a folder on the desktop, it will store those as part of the shell bag.
Do you know if it stores the whole file or just a reference to the file?
It doesn't actually store files. It's only the folder that it stores all of the access information. So if you open that folder to retrieve a file, you'll get a timestamp for the access of the file or of the folder itself.
That makes sense. I mean, specifically in the case where they're using a custom icon file to change, say, the color of the folder, for example.
That I do not know to that granularity. I know that there's linkages in that, like a logging of which one was used, but when it's accessed or when it's created, I'm not quite sure if that's logged.
Okay, no problem.
From my experience, I've never seen it drill down that far, but
Yeah.
Zimmerman Shell Bags Explorer does a really good job of breaking a lot of that stuff down. So there might be some stuff that Windows adds in on an update, like in a feature update that instantly starts tracking that something like Shell Bags Explorer will track. So.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if you weren't able to do a combination of shell bags and something like I'm thinking if Amcache would do it. But that's really just an executable, not an icon file. It's probably going to be another one of the artifacts that we just talked about. We'd have to look at which one specifically for an ICO file, if that's what you're talking about specifically.
Yeah, that is. Thank you.
Yeah. Have to look at it. Lots of good questions tonight. Excellent. All right. Any other questions that I missed here? Doesn't look like it. Awesome. All right. Where were we? Shell bags. All right. So yeah, I think this is the last one, and then I'm going to hand it over to Coach Brunty. USN Journal. This is kind of one that when I talk to students that I teach forensics to, they've never heard of. They might have heard of shell bags and Amcache and Shimcache and things, but USN Journal kind of squeaks through a lot of forensics training sometimes. And there's some really interesting things. The way that I learned about USN Journal was from a CTF challenge. So they exist. I can't remember which one it was. It might have been a forensics CTF, but it was quite a while ago. But that's when I had to like learn what USN was. Pretty sure it was something that I did at DEF CON though. USN Journal is the update sequence number journal, and it really is the underpinning of what NTFS is. So that new technology file system that Windows uses. It is a log that keeps when and how files are manipulated on the file system. So this is logged first, then the manipulation is completed. So anytime that you manipulate something on your file system, USN Journal gets a log entry. Oh, really? USN Journal was one of the first things? Yeah, maybe it was just my poor government forensics training. Since I didn't take forensics in college or anything, I ended up taking it when I was in the Army. So USN Journal includes files that are created, deleted, modified in any way. So this is a really important timestamp log of any manipulation of files on your system. Now, most of the OS versions store around 30 to 40 megabytes. It's not all that much. So it will overwrite. You can see here that beginning of file space is completely empty. OS can report a file size of hundreds of gigabytes. And that's because of the way that USN Journal logs its information. You can see the little graphic in the bottom here. USN records, the way that Windows logs these things, it doesn't give high fidelity information. So you do have to take USN Journal information sometimes, especially with sizing, with a grain of salt. Full disk forensics can carve old stuff from entries that were never overwritten, but that again can be quite unreliable. This does include the MFT ID, so that would help carve things out of a drive if for whatever reason the file table was not working or you couldn't get it to parse correctly. But it will be here. The extend USN Journal file is where you find this. Now, the $J is an alternate data stream. So this isn't something that you're just going to go in and grab. You really probably need a forensic utility to be able to pull that alternate data stream from disk.
By the way, there was a question in the chat.
Did I miss another one?
A little bit. It was, do you have any suggested books, resources, in-depth reference materials for Windows artifacts? Because like I know you guys mentioned that like Artifact Wiki or something website, but if you have like a thing of
so my go-to, quite honestly, my go-to is very rarely books because they get outdated so quick. I've been using AI more and more for Windows artifacts and forensics in general. Things like Perplexity that has RAG, so that retrieval augmentation. And I find that I get everything I need from very easily findable blog entries. There's a ton of forensics people out there that love to write blogs about all these nuanced little artifacts. And I find that quite often that is the absolute best resource because you will find old blogs for old stuff and new blogs for new stuff. And if I just bought a book, it's all going to be old stuff.
Does Perplexity AI have a good amount of hallucinations as well? Or is it just because it just grabs stuff?
Yeah, that's a great question. As an aside, I know that I really didn't introduce myself at the beginning of this because I think I've introduced myself to this group before, like when we started the Combine and when we've had like the coaches meetings with all of you. Yeah, Lily, I know you too. But my full-time job, I'm a co-founder at an AI startup, and it's all I do all day, every day is build AI and research AI. And my entire company, we have gotten rid of our $200 a month ChatGPT licenses, and we have totally moved everything over to Perplexity. We have found that the hallucinations are pretty non-existent. Its research capabilities are top-notch. I'm also in my PhD program right now in psychology, and I use Perplexity to help me find academically peer-reviewed resources, ChatGPT couldn't touch it. Claude doesn't touch it. Perplexity does a fantastic job of helping me find things that I've not been able to research on my own. And I've looked for those hallucinations. We actually test these things and tried to find hallucinations in them. And Perplexity has been rock solid. And it is our new AI of choice, other than our own that we're building right now. Yeah, Seth, I used O3 earlier today, in fact. I still use ChatGPT from time to time. I do find that ChatGPT is a better writer than Perplexity. I use Claude for code, so I use Claude Code when I code. I find that Claude is best at code. I find that ChatGPT is best at writing, and I find Perplexity is best at research.
There was a question about the model of Perplexity you use, David.
Whatever, let me go take a look, because I don't know the model number off the top of my head like I probably should. I'm going to stop sharing this now because I am done preaching. Let me go find that, what I have it set to. I'm on an unpaid account with this because I have not switched over. My personal account is not unpaid. I have a paid one through work, but my personal one's unpaid, and that's the one I often default to. So I am on whatever the latest, where is it in Perplexity? Whatever the latest model is that Perplexity is using, I have not changed it or selected a different one. I can't even see where Perplexity is advertising this. Quite honestly, I've never even looked at the models on this. I just use it. All right. What other questions does anyone have on forensics? Or we can even chat AI for a minute if you want.
That'd be cool.
Wasn't this gonna be a forensics AI week, or is it's now just forensics, I think?
Yeah, it was potentially going to be a forensics and AI, but the AI piece did not come together as we intended it to.
No worries.
But
Yeah,
you got
the
guy. David can talk about it a little bit, likely.
yeah, I can talk about it a little bit. Unfortunately, I was out of the country the last 2 weeks, and I'm now on military annual training. So I'm literally in a campground. That's why I'm next to the Navy base right now. And I've had zero time to put any more together than what I've already presented to you tonight. So if there was a little miscommunication or confusion about the whole AI part of it, I apologize.
No, that wasn't on you at all. But if you have anything that you want to share about AI, or if you have questions on AI to the athletes, that is, feel free.
Yeah, I mean, I'll field any questions you guys want about AI. I'm not a super subject matter expert, but you know, I do look at it all day, every day. So we are building a cognitive AI platform at my company. I'm not the main coder, but I can try to answer questions if you have them.
I have a question more generally about the AI space. Are you concerned at all, especially with CTF challenges, for example, if people are using AI to help them solve these challenges? Like, where do you draw the line between the AI is helping you and you're just feeding the challenge to the AI? Do you think there's any risk of people not developing necessary skills because of that?
Yeah, and in fact, that the lack of building necessary skills is something that in my psychology studies, I've actually been looking at, where we are seeing pretty severe drops in cognitive ability of people who use AI too much. There's been tests that have been done that show that the cognitive capacity of someone who uses AI is dwindling, because they do not use certain parts of their brain to think on their own like they normally would. They're letting AI do that thinking for them. And so in that light, I completely agree that someone who uses AI too much in any respect, including in CTF challenges, is going to start lacking the ability to complete them without AI in the future.
Sure, that makes sense.
Yeah, and now where do I draw the line of using AI as a helper or using AI as a cheater? I also am a college professor at both the undergraduate and graduate level. In my undergraduate classes, I tell them not to use AI. And in my graduate level cyber intelligence class, I tell them and teach them how to use AI to write their products. But there's a really, really big difference there. In the commercial world, especially when it comes to cyber threat intelligence and delivering a product to your customer, whether it be the CEO or some network manager that needs a little information on the threat analysis, they don't care where the information comes from. They just want to be able to trust it. And unfortunately, we have too many people that are in the workforce that don't know how to write. And as a manager, as a government employee, as an officer in the Army, I get things handed to me all the time that I cannot trust because whoever wrote it doesn't know how to use English grammar correctly. That is something that AI does very well. So to answer your question, I'm kind of going on a tangent with this, that I tell my students to write what they want to tell me and then use AI to make it sound better and more correct, and learn the English grammar that you need to learn that apparently the school isn't teaching you. So I do allow AI in my classes. Now, in a similar way, how would that equate to a CTF? I think if you're doing the majority of the work that you're supposed to be doing so that you understand the solution and you're using AI to clean it up a little bit, I don't have a problem with that. But if you're using AI to solve it, then I think that's cheating.
On your side, as an instructor, you said you use it or you teach your students how to use it. Do you then use it at all to summarize their work or to assess their work, or do you do all of that manually?
I do all of that. I do all of that myself. I won't use AI to give someone a grade that they're paying for.
Okay.
I have a quick question about more LLMs, because I know my professor who did cog sci and does AI, she personally is very upset with the fact that we're investing so much into LLMs and whatever, because we really should be doing things more like natural language processing, she thinks, and more like AGI. Do you think we could ever go from all this investment into LLMs into actually getting something that's smart?
It's an interesting question. Right now, when my company, when we build out an LLM for a customer, the build out is not expensive. The coding of the GUI, the coding of the APIs is easy. The collection of all of the data is easy. You know, we might have, there's one customer I just built an LLM for, and it was probably a couple gigabytes of data. That was it. It wasn't very much at all, but it took us 2 weeks and thousands of dollars of compute to train the LLM on how to respond to questions to the LLM. And that's really where the sticking point right now is, in the training of the data. Training of the data is just monumentally expensive. If we can drive that down, and we will with better processing chips and with more research into how to create better algorithms to learn faster, because quite honestly, a lot of LLM training is unrealistically manual. We haven't gotten LLMs to the point of training themselves. We're still feeding the data in certain ways that we want it to ingest it. And if we can solve that, I think that we'll get closer to being able to spend less money doing that so that we can find other things. But right now, I think LLMs are extremely important. LLMs are what is curing cancer, and it's finding diseases that doctors could not in patients, because that large language model is able to churn so much data and look through so much data that a human could not. I think LLMs and the AI around LLMs is super important right now.
But is it ethical to use LLMs in the healthcare space? Because I know a lot of doctors who say they absolutely refuse to look at it because
Yeah,
it doesn't know why it got it. So they can't use it until it knows why it got that answer. Because otherwise they can't just say, oh, AI thinks that you have cancer.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I do question the ethics about it. It's one of the things that I'm leading at my company. I'm the CSO at my company, but I also lead the ethics portion of it. My company is right now helping the state of Ohio develop their AI ethics policy. And it's something that I look at quite a lot, honestly. What I go to, though, is from the patient perspective. I don't look at it. Well, I do look at it from the doctor perspective, but I don't empathize with the doctor perspective. I empathize with the patient perspective of the patient now has an answer the doctor couldn't give them. And when I look at it in that light, I don't think they care who gave them the answer. They have the answer that they needed to get better. And if that is an ethical quandary, then maybe that's a societal question that we need to talk about more. Yeah, I don't have a perfect answer for that.
Yeah, no worries. Sorry, I
Yeah.
just do a lot of classes in this, so I was just curious on your thoughts.
Yeah,
Not
no,
to like slam you with hard questions.
no, it's great. That's a great question. And I'm glad other people are thinking about it, because there's a lot of people in this world that don't care about the ethics of anything, including AI. So the more people we can really get talking about the morality and ethics of compute, the better. Any other questions,
Really cool stuff.
comments, concerns? All right, Chief Brunty, I know that you had some stuff to talk about tonight.
Yeah, I was just going to bring up a couple of things. I don't want to keep you guys on for too long, but I know there'll be some things that will pop up in terms of just discussion over Discord over the next couple of days. So I mentioned earlier that if you haven't, kind of keep an eye on over in the US Cyber Games Discord, that specialty area, because they'll be posting some stuff over there. So that way we can talk offline once we wrap this call up. It's just an easier way to chat. I will be posting a CTF challenge over there, and it'll be a little bit different because this will be a PCAP of an active malware infection, and I'll ask a kind of a tiered series of questions. Some of them will be pretty easy, some of them will be pretty a little bit more difficult, but they're kind of designed to be a little bit easier to kind of have you dig into it. But honestly, the whole purpose of this exercise is going to be a little bit different than your traditional CTF, which is really going to have you digging into an active PCAP as you would in security operations or in a forensics environment. So it kind of mimics more of a realistic scenario with a flag-based kind of tiered challenges that you would answer. So we'll ask some things about domain names of the infected domain and things like that. It'll be fun to dig through. So I'll hopefully get that up to the CTF server a little bit later tonight. I know we were going to post it after the lecture, but it depends on what time I end up hitting a bed tonight. But no later than probably early in the morning. So I'll keep you guys alert to Discord on that. I'll also be sharing out some resources, just some extra stuff to kind of help you with some cheat sheets over in Discord as well. One of the things that we really wanted to push over the past couple of years that I've seen a lot of is just getting a good playbook together. So if you're in these kind of competitions, everything kind of becomes muscle memory. So you're really just kind of pulling out of your knowledge base rather than going back and have to look up things. So we really want to throw as many resources as we can so you have that at your fingertips, including just some kind of sort of offline walkthroughs through this PCAP. So that's one of the things that that we'll try to make fun offline in terms of going through this PCAP kind of as kind of a low stakes walkthrough challenge. So yeah. So but I also had just a little walkthrough document that I'll share in Discord as well that just kind of walks you through some thoughts that I've had over the past being part of the past 2 European cybersecurity competitions, which I know a couple of you have been part of, and the past 2 ICCs. And they're fundamentally different on how they approach forensic challenges. The European model is a little bit different if you've ever played any Euro CTFs. Yeah, so sorry, I was reading the chat there at same time I was talking. So sorry, I didn't mean to get off track there. But the Euro competition's a little bit different because they get away from your traditional, what we see in the States here as forensic challenges, and go more into the reverse engineering. So you might have seen that, but some of the concepts still hold true in how some of those solves come to be. We're also, for the first time, seeing AI and cloud challenges showing up in Tokyo. We don't know what those cloud challenges are going to look like. We don't know what those forensic or those AI challenges are going to look like. I can only assume that based upon the development and the way things are trending, that they may have a little bit of a forensic angle to them in terms, especially some. I just really don't know yet, but we'll be passing along that throughout the combine and even after we pick the team. So you guys kind of hang tight, in terms of really just learning, even for your own competitions. That's what we brought you into the combine for, to not only assess you to hopefully you make the team, but also kind of capture you at a moment where you can learn some things in the combine as well. So we really want you to kind of increase your knowledge base, because that's what we're here for. That's what we're working for. So I'll be sharing a lot of stuff over there. And I'll be offline to help you with some of those Discord challenges, as will Jacob and David. And but mostly, in the CTF challenge, if there's anything wonky, feel free to reach out to me. But that'll be the resources that'll be shared. So, but anyway, that's pretty much just kind of the gist. I'll kind of summarize that in a Windows document, because the last thing you probably want to do is listen to me talk for another 10-15 minutes about just different strategic things that I can easily put to a document. So that's all that I have, honestly, tonight. I think it's been a good night in terms of what we've seen discussed in chats, and I'm glad that you guys are engaging. This has probably been one of my favorite kind of discussions I've seen. Yeah, time for me to run trivia night. Awesome. So guys, unless you guys have any questions, which feel free to jump them over into Discord if you do. I'm more than happy to answer them. Between David and I, we have quite a bit of experience in terms of doing this as a career. So feel free to anything that picks your brain, jump it over there. If we can't figure it out, we'll look it up for you and we'll solve it again. So
Fantastic.
all right.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. Real quick to everybody, appreciate all of you and your engagement per usual. These training sessions on Tuesday nights have been fantastic. One quick note, if you've already scheduled your athlete interview and it was scheduled at like a 15 or 45 minutes after the hour, I bumped you one way or the other to start at the top of the hour or at 30, just to keep calendars a little bit more clean and get those staffed a little easier. So make sure you see the updated meeting invite. Those have been resent just with the new time. Otherwise, have a wonderful rest of your night. Thank you so much for being here. We will communicate with you in Discord when some follow-up materials are ready for you. And feel free to engage with Coach Brunty and Coach Morgan in Discord as well over the course of the next few days while we are knocking out some forensic stuff. Have a wonderful rest of your night, everybody. Thanks for being here.
Just one real quick question. I saw the extra CTF challenges mentioned. Are the extra challenges just for being extra, or are they also scored as well?
No, they're not going to be scored. Yeah, Brad, the intention wasn't for them to be scored. You can if you want, but the intention was that the packet captures CTF question that Coach Brunty is going to add that he talked about, that's the official one for this week. And then some of the ones that I'm going to add, I don't want to make them official because I can't promise how many that I'll be able to get and when I'll be able to get them. So it might, what's today, Tuesday? It might not be till like Thursday that I can get them up there anyway. And I don't want to leave you with too little time to officially count them as a scoring opportunity.
No, that's fair. Okay, so we will we'll share an update. I'll chat with these guys later tonight or tomorrow, and I'll get you guys an update. There will be at least one challenge that's scored for this week's forensic stuff.
Thank you.